This episode, entrepreneur and handyman Alan Stephenson from 911 Handyman. This episode discusses solutions and challenges of building a handyman business. This will be part 3 of our show. We want to thank you for listening. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled Entrepreneur and Handyman Alan Stephenson from 911 Handyman, Part 3. To help me explain, I'm here with Johnny, my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy.
He's always cheerful.
Most of the time. It depends on how good the bar was last night. That's where
right.
I go for it. Anyway.
That's right.
Anyway.
Oh, man.
Tell me a story about this week, John. Tell me a story.
Well, yeah. So I had to do some electrical work. And of course I went down to the breaker panel in this house, and lo and behold, none of the breakers are labeled.
So surprise.
That was really nice. So everybody out there, take a look at what your breaker box looks like from time to time, and label those things. It's a great tip, so you don't have to go down there and try to figure all this stuff out and waste a lot of time. Anyways, I'm excited that this is part 3 with our discussion with Alan. And we've really come a long way in talking about opening a business, having the issues with that, and now some of the solutions and things. So once again, we've mentioned it in the other episode is, we do all this for all the homeowners out there, as well as all the handymen and contractors that might be listening to us, and to help them define their business.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's just a ton to be learned here. So with that, here's part 3 with Alan. We're back with Alan Stephenson. Alan, we've been having a roll here on talking. We were talking marketing, and so you need to listen to the previous 2 shows that we've done with Alan, folks, if you're out there and you're listening, because this is tremendous. Really tremendous marketing stuff. John and I have talked about a bunch of it, or not marketing, but business advice in general. And so we're just going to continue on with the conversation. We were talking about marketing, and actually we were talking about, Alan was talking about doing home shows, and we were getting into where we're going to start talking about driving business to your website. We talked a little bit about business cards, which John and I have talked about before. We're talking now about more on the marketing side and driving business to your business. So, Alan, I'm going to throw it back to you. Take it away.
Okay, thank you for having me back. In the previous episode, we were talking about the importance of having, really high quality business cards, having shirts with big logos where they really stand out. Our box trailer, let me tell you, our first box trailer we paid, I think we bought it used, but it was in really good shape, a 7x14. We got a great deal on it. Paid, $3,000 for it. And then we went and had like $1,500 worth of graphics put on it. And I run across a lot of people that say, well, I can't afford to do that. Well, let me tell you how that works. And there are a lot of people that are against credit, borrowing money and all that. Well, before we had our box trailer, we're in Louisiana. It rains. Every time it rained, we missed time off work because we could not haul materials. And, and then also we'd have to make multiple trips during the day to pick up materials because we could only haul so much in our trucks. So we bought this box trailer. Our note on it was, I don't know, say $200 a month, roughly. I think it was right at 200, maybe 220, something like that a month. Well, just the fact that we picked up extra days of work because we could work on those rainy days, that way more than paid that note. Then you figure in, okay, well, now we're more efficient because we can pick up the materials for 3 jobs instead of 1, just using our pickup truck. Well, that way more than paid for the note. And then that is because we had nice graphics and it looks professional. And like I said, it was nothing elaborate, just really nice, clean, big letters, less is more type situation. And that trailer is a rolling billboard. We get so much business from that. I mean, some of our best jobs have actually come from people seeing that trailer in traffic and taking a picture of it with our phone number.
And there's a tip. So you just made a tip, Alan, I want to give. This is a marketing tip, folks. Today, with everybody's cameras, and you know this, but but we want to emphasize this. Make everything picture ready, camera ready, meaning in the screen, they need to be able to get the name, the phone number, a website if you want one, have one, all of that thing, but make it so it fits in the screen so somebody can snap a picture quickly and get all of your contact information in one place. It sounds simple, right, Alan? It is simple, but you have to be cognizant and deliberate about it. Be deliberate in your thinking here. Think this one through is just my point.
Right, and I will tell you one mistake I think a lot of people make is they want to make something really elaborate and it's beautiful and all that, and you see it go by and you're like, wow, that's pretty, but you didn't notice the name, you didn't notice the phone number, you just noticed it was pretty or it was cool looking, right? So, like I said, less is more. Big letters where you can see it from a long ways off, and it tells people what we do. We actually had professional handyman services larger than the name of the company.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't matter what the name of your company is if nobody knows what you do. You know, the first thing I want somebody to do is say, hey, I need a handyman, and then look at my company name, and then look at my phone number, right? So that was just one of those tips that we did. And you know, going back to the previous episode, you know, marketing and growing a business, it's not just that one magic bullet that you do something and all of a sudden it starts flowing in. You hit it from different areas, having flyers in the stores, having the business cards, having the shirts. And nothing I'm talking about here is really expensive, you know, and then stepping up to, even if it's a small box trailer with your name on it, hey man, that's a great thing, or a van or whatever. And I see these people trying to start a handyman business driving a Prius. It's kind of hard to do that. You know, don't be afraid to go borrow some money. Invest in yourself. And, you know,
you just made a key word there. The key word is invest, right? This is an investment in your business, right? So that lettering or the right vehicle makes all the difference. I mean, I'm just going to tell a quick story from my initial handyman business. I had a business left over from my a vehicle left over from my vending business. It was a Sprinter. And I started doing some jobs in some very, very affluent neighborhoods, $1 million plus houses. And I hate to say it, my Sprinter was getting a little long in the tooth, and it was actually long story short, it had a primer problem, and the paint was starting to peel off on the roof. And it was about one day I walked out of this very nice and exclusive house, and I looked at my truck and I said, it's time for a new truck, because it didn't fit in that neighborhood anymore. It just was time for a new vehicle. And it was a little thing, but it's made a huge difference. I purchased a newer vehicle and have since, you know, had more business in that neighborhood, but nobody wants this truck with the paint peeling off of it parked in their $1 million house driveway, you know, for too long. We'll say that. And so understand that, folks. When we talk about being professional, there's more than just it's marketing is all about image, and it's image the whole way through. It's from how you answer the phone, and we've talked about that in the previous episode, and what your vehicle looks like. Are you properly dressed for the job? Are you using the right words, and you're not using profanity? We talked about that in the show. I have a bad habit of talking to myself, so I tend to tell people that before I start working. I say, folks, I talk to myself a lot. It helps me work through the job process. Just understand I'm talking to myself, and I don't use bad words or anything, but I let them know, and they kind of laugh. You know, most of the time they kind of laugh, and at the end of the day they go, you really do talk to yourself. I said, thank you. That's why I told you in advance. But anyway,
I'm gonna kind of sidetrack here and talk about something I touched on just a minute ago, and that is, some people are so against debt, and I get why. I understand it. Maybe they've been burned by it. Maybe they just feel maybe spiritually, you know, their spiritual beliefs is against that. And I'm a very spiritual person myself. But when it all comes down to it is, can you pay cash and grow your business? Yes. but it is going to take a very, very long time. It is going to be a slow, arduous process. There's going to be a lot of times when it's costing you more money by not being able to buy something so you can be more efficient. And I was using the example of our trailer. Our trailer brought us business. Our trailer gave us more days on the job. Our trailer made us more efficient because we could make less trips to the store. That way more than paid for the interest that I would be paying. So the risk was very, very low. And that kind of feeds into, and that doesn't mean, okay, well, I need to look nice, so I'm going to go buy an $80,000, diesel four-wheel drive truck, right? It's all about balance. Is it going to make me more efficient? Is it going to bring me business?
Right.
And if it is going to do either of those things, then yes, it is okay.
So from your financial management practice, I call that good debt, bad debt, right? So there's good debt, which is debt that if you're paying, I'm just going to use a number, 5%, right, on your money. Say you borrow money at 5%, but you're making 25% on it, you're getting a net of 20%, right? I mean, simple math. But so in that case, does it make sense to take money out at 5% interest to make 20%? In my financial world, that's a yes. If I take out the 5% money to go buy I don't know, I've got to use a bad just a meal, right? So I go and I put a meal out that is a nothing special meal. Let's just say it's a nothing special. It's not super. I'm not going to a Michelin 5-star restaurant where that's an experience that I'm purchasing. This is something else. And I just go to eat and I pay 5% on that. Now that cost me 5%. It didn't bring me any value out of it. So in that case, to me, that's an example of bad debt. So there's the difference between good debt and bad debt. We deal a lot with that in the rental property business. Obviously, like, do you take a loan out on a property? Well, if your rate of return is higher, of course you're going to take a loan out on that property. And the same thing applies to business. That's where I just wanted people to understand that. You have a financial management background, and I have a bit of a financial management background. So I want people to understand that debt is not always bad. It's not always good, but it's not always bad. And then you just have to manage cash flow, right? So cash flow is money that your $200 a month payment, if it's offset with a $500 increase in business, you are now $300 ahead every single month. That's, in my world, that's a go, because I'm getting 50% or more than 50%.
Another perfect example is that I found a really good deal on two trash trailers. I call them, tandem axle, high mesh sides. You see them used for landscaping a lot, and found two used trailers. I think I bought them for $3,800 for the both of them.
That's a good deal.
Well, right. Oh yeah, great deal. But why would we buy those? Well, because now we didn't have to rent a dumpster to do a tear out on a project.
Exactly.
We didn't have to rent a dumpster. Like a perfect example. Right after we bought those trailers, one of our good clients called. He's got some rental properties. He's one of those guys that actually does the work himself usually.
Sure. Yep.
And he called me. He said, I need you to get your handyman guys, go to this house. He said, I had a tenant. She got on drugs, just destroyed the house. There's just stuff everywhere. It's just full of stuff. And she disappeared. And he said, it's going to take me. He said, I need you to call and arrange for a dumpster. And he said, I don't even know how long that's going to take. Sometimes in our area that can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he said, it's going to take me, because he owns a business also. He said, it's going to take me, a month and a half of working weekends and nights to get this place ready again. And I said, well, first of all, we don't have to call and arrange for a dumpster. I said, we have trash trailers. We'll show up. Our guys will have the place emptied in a few hours. And I said, secondly, go do what you do best. Run your business. Enjoy your weekends time. Let my guys roll in there. We'll have that place ready in a few days. And he's like, you know what? You're right. And we got his place back on the market. So, because every week you don't have it on the market, it's costing you money.
Costing you money. Yeah.
And so, that was a perfect example of how borrowing a little bit of money to buy those trailers paid off. Now we get the dumpster fees. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
The only downside to those trailers was we were having to pay labor for 2 people to go unload those trailers at the dump.
Yep.
So then we bought our first dump
trailer. I was just going to say, you're headed to a dump trailer. Yep.
And so now those dump trailers come in handy because we'll haul materials to a job site, and then we haul the
trash
debris away.
Yep.
And we charge for that.
Yep.
Right. And so instead of the waste management company getting that fee, we get it.
Yeah, and it's all under one house too. So they make one call, and they, meaning the customer, makes one call, and he now gets all of these services bundled into one thing. Alan, this is like a perfect time to segue into pricing, because we know that in the handyman world, pricing is critical. And so can we talk about setting prices on jobs a little bit while we're on this kind of, because you offer multitude of services here, and that's something that both John and I, we do the same things. It's kind of funny you mentioned that high side trailer. John, do I have a high side trailer?
Yes, you do, Larry.
Yes, and so we totally understand that whole concept. And I've actually considered doing a dump trailer myself. I just haven't. It's a long story. I'm not doing enough demolition to need it. But anyway, let's talk pricing, because pricing is a huge point for most of the handymen out there, and we also want our homeowners to understand how pricing can be determined in the handyman world. And so one of the things, and John and I we've done shows on this, but we call it the Triad. So there's time, and then there's quality, and then there's, what's the third one, John?
Time.
Put him on the spot.
I mean, there's and speed, right?
And speed, yeah. So how fast can we get it done? How good is the quality, and what's the price?
And that's the classic Triad in anything, really.
Yeah, and the pricing.
The first thing is just knowing what you're spending. I mean, and look, so I've got a friend of mine that's been a commercial contractor for years. I mean, he built schools, he builds, he built a big shrimp processing plant down in South Louisiana. I mean, and he's been doing this for many, many years. And that was one of the first calls that I made. It's like, how do you price things? And he just laughed at me, and he said, I've been doing this all these years. And he said, it's still the most difficult thing about our business. The main thing is don't undervalue yourself, and, know what your costs are. All right. So, your insurance, your gas, your marketing, your CRM, building some cushion in there. And, I think most of our customers or clients that kind of balk at pricing, they don't realize what is involved in a job. So one of the things that, and of course I've got sales background and, as well as the financial management, and my business partner, he is the one that quotes all the jobs, him or my oldest son, Derek, who's also a partner in the business. They bid all the jobs. I don't. Honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start because I don't go out and do the work every day, right? I don't know how long it's going to take them. So, but one of the things that I talked to him about was that whole sales process of, okay, that client, they think you're just replacing one board. They don't realize what all's involved with that, or that, they think you're just, replacing a faucet or making a sheetrock repair. Okay, well, that sheetrock repair, okay, we're going to have to, this is the process of doing that. And explaining that process. Okay, we got to get our materials together. We got to go pick up materials. We got to, if we're building a deck, we got to plan that deck. And, we think it's going to be take us X number of hours to build this, but we could be wrong. We could run into some problems. So we got to build some cushion in there for ourselves, and, we rarely ever bid anything by the hour. We just tell them, hey, here's the price. And, there's some danger to that, but going back to, I think it was our first episode, of doing this, lessons cost money. Good lessons cost a lot of money. Sometimes you have to learn some lessons. We learned a lesson on our first bathtub install in an old house. We thought it was going to take X number of hours. We priced it accordingly. Well, it took almost twice as long because the walls weren't square.
Yep.
we ate it and we did it. We did it for the price we said we would, but we learned a valuable lesson. Now, when we do that, either A, we bring in somebody else to do it because we do sub out some work. We are licensed remodeling contractors, or we'll do it ourselves. But we now know to build some cushion in there for ourselves if things go wrong. And there's nothing wrong when you're pricing a job to say, to give them a price range. It'll be at least this much. It won't be over this.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because that's what John and I do all the time. We actually range things, and particularly on jobs, and we tell this, like, we've given this advice out to multiple people, but I wanted to hear what you're doing because you're basically on the same page. But you just don't know, particularly on we always factor in. So John and I are a little more hands-on than you are, Alan. But you talked. I want to touch on three things that I know you've said. Number one is know what your expenses are. Folks, you've got to know what your expenses are. Now, your expenses are broken down into, there's materials for the individual job, but there's also in what you described, Alan, are the infrastructure expenses. So there's just things just to run your business, right? So you need a phone, and you need insurance, or my opinion, you need insurance. You need systems in place. You need CRM. We personally like to have a good financial accounting program so that when we enter in things, we know where those expenses are. But you need to know what your expenses are, and that's all your expenses. I'm not talking about just what is your labor charge. What do you charge? Right. What would you go to work for somebody else for? And then you have to add that P word, that nasty word, profit, on top of that. Stop working for wages. If you're going to run a business, you have to run a business. Businesses run on profit. So that's the first part of it. And over a month, you'll figure out what your cost, or months, let's say multiple years. If you're starting off, it's a little tough, but you're still going to end up knowing what your costs are every single month. And just for example, my infrastructure costs are a couple $100 a month, which I run a very lean operation, and et cetera, et cetera. If I had multiple employees, it would be a lot more. There's more insurance and things like that. Anyway, I don't want to get into the weeds too much on that, but know what your costs are. So with that, then have an idea of how much your time is going to cost you to do the job. That's where we get into some of these things, like you learned the hard way about old homes. I was going to laugh and say you did that initial job, and you found out that the wall was actually 61 inches apart instead of 60, which is all modern construction is 60 inches, as where other construction or older construction is 61 because they used to put an inch of concrete on the walls to make those bathroom things out. Now, I know that because I've done several older homes, and I grew up in a house built in 1812 where there was no plumbing. Anyway, long story on that one, we won't get into that. But those are some of the in-the-weeds things that when you go out to estimate those jobs, you kind of have to have an idea. And if you can't do that job, if you have any doubts about it, build in some hedge, right? You have to say, provided we don't have this. We do a lot of wood rot jobs here in Atlanta, Alan, because that's the nature of this environment that we live in. And anytime we get into a wood rot quote, I am very hesitant to give absolute, like I don't, basically. And I basically say,
put it in writing.
Yeah.
This is what we see right now.
Yep.
We may run into additional problems. We will contact you before we move forward to let you know what we think it's going to cost. And, and one of the things that we did in all that, and a good friend of mine that has a handyman business also, and he's kind of like you guys. He has maybe one or two people that will help him occasionally, but usually it's just him. But he has a set amount he's going to charge for a half a day or a full day.
Yep.
And it all starts with knowing what your expenses are and what you want to make for profit. And we basically did the same thing. We said, okay, this is our goal for every single day. We're going to make X number of dollars.
Yep, that's the model I've gone to this year. Is I'm doing daily rates. I'm pretty much trying to get everybody to do a daily rate, and it's daily plus materials. And I know what my expenses. I know all of that information, so I'm on a daily rate plus expenses. And in my case, because I am an owner operator, if my customers don't have enough work for a whole day, what I ask them, usually what we're doing, because our schedule's running super tight right now, is I just say, get on your to-do list and come back and just kind of build me a day, and we'll go, a few days
there's
off.
There's a lot of wisdom in doing that. We kind of take a more hybrid approach than that. So if somebody just needs us to run in real quick and do a job, we charge a minimum fee just to show up.
Right.
And we tell them, hey, look, in fact, my son called me the other day. He said, I kind of felt bad about this. He said, but we have a business, we have expenses. And he said, I had a lady call and I was between jobs and it was, a decent drive to get to her. But I told her I could come home right now. She had a cabinet that had some issues. And he said, I just told her, I said, I can probably fix it really quickly. It probably won't take me but a few minutes, but I have to charge you. Our minimum charge was $125.
Yep.
And whether it takes me an hour or whether it takes me 10 minutes, I have to charge you that because we have to cover fuel, we have to cover labor, we have to cover insurance. And she said, you know what? I understand. And he said, I kind of felt bad for her. He said, because I was in and out of there in a few minutes, but she was happy. And that was
That's
all that
exactly
mattered because she knew what to expect.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Exactly. It wasn't a shock at the end of the day.
Right.
It's part of that communication that we talked about in one of the previous episodes about being upfront with people and really understand, and letting them know, because some people are just like, look, I just want it fixed. I'm tired of it. I just want it fixed, and I don't care what it costs. And don't take advantage of people under those circumstances. But at the same time, it's easy to say, look, I've got I do have a minimum, and one of the other things, back to cost accounting, right? Remember, your drive time costs you money. Every mile. What's the government giving now? Is it 58 cents? 55 or 55? Right. Is it 55? So they allot 55 cents a mile. If you're driving, I don't care what it is, 10 miles, that's $5.50 of real money that you've expended. So you need to account for that. You need to have a minimum charge that you go out. So don't ever. I see too many people saying, I'm gouging the customer. It's all back to that value statement. It's like, how valuable are you? Are you doing a good job? Do you show up on time? John and I are big about cleanup. Really cleaning up. My philosophy is really simple. I try to not leave I do not want to leave my customers with any additional work. I don't want to leave them with additional work.
We're the same way.
Right.
We're the same way. I've actually gotten rid of someone, a painter one time, because he took they had scraped popcorn ceiling off, and instead of him putting it in the trash can, he dumped it behind their shrub bushes.
Yep.
And, after that, I was done with him. We went back and cleaned it all up, but it made us look really bad. A couple of things that I want to, and I'll actually go back to an example. So we get very, very few complaints. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed at our team. And we almost always get 5-star reviews. Well, recently we did a job and it was about an hour drive. It was outside of our normal service area.
Yep.
A guy had a fireplace insert he needed installed. So we told him, look, it's going to be expensive. We're going to have to send 2 guys. It's an hour drive. We go do the job. We send him the bill, and the thing was monstrous. It was way bigger than any they had seen. So we kind of dropped the ball in this in a way, and he ended up having to get somebody else to come help. And he had already told us he had a tractor to help pick it up and move it around. And this thing was twice the size of any that we'd ever done before. But we sent him the bill, and it was $800. Well, he sent the payment, but he sent a letter, and he was basically complaining about us ripping him off. And he said, they were only here for 2 hours. It was a 2-hour job, and you're charging me $800? And so I responded to him, and he said, I'm going to tell everybody, about y'all and not to use y'all because of this. And so I wrote him a letter, and I said, you need to understand that we have a certain amount we have to make every day just to make a profit. I said, it wasn't a 2-hour job. It was 2 salaries, an hour there, plus 2 salaries, an hour back.
Yep. You just went through the accounting.
Yeah. Yep.
2 salaries while they were there. I said, so that's 8 hours of salary. I said, we had $100 in expense in fuel, in mileage going there and back, and so I went through all these things, and then I was like, hey, you really like that, those notifications saying we're coming, that costs money. we have insurance because we told you we're licensed and insured. That costs money.
Yep.
And so we could have done a better job of communicating with him and setting those expectations. And as far as his, it was really a threat to damage our reputation. And I said, as far as your comment about telling others about how expensive we are, I said, please do. I said, if we're coming to your community, it's going to be expensive. I said, but the reason you contacted us was because you could not find anybody else in your small town.
Right.
So yes, please do. That way we don't run into these problems in the future. And so, which goes on to my next thing. Two of the best lessons that a business owner can learn is to say no. And, and that not everyone is your customer.
That's right.
Okay. And for those homeowners out there that are listening, not every situation, we're not the answer for everyone.
Right.
If you want the cheapest person, we're not the answer.
Right.
If you are willing to take a risk of you want the cheapest job you can do, maybe it's just the most you can afford. I understand that, but with that comes a trade-off, and that person may or may not show up on time. That person may or may not have a criminal record. Who are you letting in your house around your family? Is this somebody that has had drug issues and they're actually looking around for valuables in your home? I mean, we don't have those issues, but because of that, it costs more.
Right.
So you just have to say,
no.
Is this company a match for me, or is this person a match for me? What is the best match for me? For me, I'm willing to pay more to have someone reputable and insured in my home. And because I know that if I get somebody that's not insured and they injure themselves, I can be liable for that.
Right.
And, and then as far as saying no, I mean, there's going to come these jobs that you're just not qualified for, and you try to go in and do it, and it's just not going to go well. You're setting yourself up for failure. And a lot of times people will say, well, I don't have much business coming in, so I have to take it. That job is going to prevent you from doing jobs you are qualified for. It's going to make you hate life while you're dealing with it. And so just say no and go find a job that better suits what you're doing.
That is sage wisdom. So there's another guy I know who says say no a lot. It's called Warren Buffett. And he says the biggest issue in America is that people don't say no enough. Alan, this has been a fantastic discussion, and we would like to have you back on sometime in the future. How can people get a hold of you?
The best way to get through to me is, I don't really want to give out my phone number here, but I have a personal email address they can send to. It's Alan, ALAN 71225 @gmail.com. They can send me there, or they can send me messages on Facebook, and it's ALAN, last name Stephenson, STEPHENSON. I will give my business phone number for my financial practice. It's 318-324-8410. There is one other thing that I would like to talk about before we wrap up, if it's possible. And that is, the risk. What is risk when it comes to advertising? And I'm going to give you a perfect example real quickly. When we started the Handyman business, I was introduced to a salesperson that represented a company that did websites. And when she came in, I told her, I said, this is a new business. We can't afford a lot. And, so just know that going in. She said, I understand. We sit down at my conference table. She starts talking about all these whiz-bang things that they do. And my mind, I'm sitting there going, yeah, this is going to be expensive. And I finally stopped her and I was like, okay, how much money are we talking about here? She said $435 a month. I actually got up from the table and was walking out of my conference room, going to just leave her there because I was kind of angry that she'd wasted my time. And I'm not normally like that, but it was just kind of a burr under my saddle. And she said, wait, just listen to me. Give me 5 minutes. And it's more than a website. I promise you'll like what you hear. And I said, 5 minutes, go. And she said, okay, this is part of a total digital marketing system. And when she explained to me that I was going to have banner ads and I would have ads on social media and all that would be driving traffic to my website, and that I would get about 26 to 31,000 exposures a month, and I could control the demographics, I could control the region, you know, how far out. So we did like a 30-mile radius. I could control the age, I could control the gender, you know, that we marketed to. And the first thought in my mind was, okay, how many jobs do I have to get to pay for $435 a month? Because when it comes to marketing, my first concern is breaking even.
Right.
And I said, one, maybe two jobs would pay for that, or could potentially pay for a whole year, but you know, one or two jobs. Now, what are the chances of me getting one or two jobs out of 26 to 31,000 exposures a month?
About 100%.
Chances are very, very high that I'm going to at least break even. Right.
In fact, I would tell you the problem is you're going to get too many leads, and you have to be extremely careful with getting too many leads, because when you get back to that marketing image, if you get too many leads and you can't even take care of the leads that you get, now you're in a position where you're now a fading star. You're losing credibility out there in the field.
The only thing worse for a business than growing too slow is growing too fast.
That's right.
Yep.
You got to manage growth.
Got to manage growth.
For me, that was a almost zero risk decision, even though $435 a month to a new business was a lot of money. So when we think about risk, you know, and I'll have people tell me, it's like, oh yeah, I tried advertising on Facebook. It didn't do anything good. I'm not doing that again. Oh, really? Well, how did you do that? Well, I spent $50 and I didn't get any leads.
Right.
No, you didn't advertise.
Right.
And people have to see, the more they see something, the higher the response rates are. And, you know, so, and there's been a lot of studies done on this 5, 6, 7 times. That's when you see the response rates go up. So instead of blasting out and trying to hit as many people as you can, you take that budget you've got, whatever it is, whether it's $50 or $1,000 or $5,000, whatever it is, you say, okay, how can I hit a small, concentrated group of people over and over and over and over again? And that's when you start seeing the benefits of the advertising. And like I said, when you think about risk when it comes to advertising, you've got to think about it a little bit differently than what you might normally.
Right.
So
be aware of success. Be aware of success. All right. With that, we're going to have you back on the show in the future, because there's still more, I can tell. And but at this point, we're going to end this one, and we'll recontact you, and we'll have you on again. Alan, I want to thank you for your time.
It's awesome.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, I want to thank Alan for being on the show. Johnny, we've gotten to the part where we've got some key takeaways.
Yeah. So, you know, what the discussion really hit me was a real life, the story of building a business. You know, I mentioned it earlier, was that, you know, both of us, we have an interest in reading all the boards and things with a lot of the handymen and contractors and things. And there's always a lot of questions surrounding the business. And this was really an interesting story of how Alan got into this, and how he expanded this business. And I think Larry, you'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But that really got me. It really encapsulated this whole entrepreneur type of environment, where he got into this handyman business, and looked around and just grew it. And one of the other things that hit me in any of the businesses, and once again I go back to, you know, the boards that we read, is you need a way to have a system and processes around your business so that you're not haphazard. Okay, and that was one of the things that I really took away from, because even in any business, if you don't have a system, how you're running your day to day, you're going to get really so balled up wrapped around the axle, if you will, that you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. You're going to waste a lot of money, a lot of time. So I thought that was a really good point that he made there.
Yeah, and I agree with all of those points. It was really this is virtually almost a perfect primer for starting a true business. And when we talk about a business, one of the things that was described was, what is a business? Well, a business, by Alan's definition, it would be mine as well, is if the founder walks away, does the business continue? And I think that was kind of one of my takeaways. If you want to build, when we talk about a business, John and I operate our businesses as owner-operators. We know this. We did this intentionally, largely for a lot of different reasons. Nothing wrong with that and nothing wrong with wanting to run an actual business. But Alan has built a true business. If he were to walk away today, the business continues to run. And he talks a bit about legacy and things like that and why he did that. And it's a great story, folks. If you haven't listened to all 3 sections, you need to listen to all 3 sections. One of I get a little bit more into the weeds than John does, so I think Alan gives some great tips on networking, hiring, marketing, a lot of the things. He has a financial management background, so he talks a bit about, we talked a bit about good debt, bad debt, about debt to help grow your business, about time frame. I think my biggest takeaway on the whole of the whole show is that Alan is deliberate. He took time before he started his business. He thought about it. He took the time to plan his business thoroughly. Or not thoroughly, he did it a little bit. If you listen to the story, you'll hear it. But once he started the business, he really got into the thinking processes of what is it that this business is and what do I want it to be. And it's the result of that he's had the success that he's had. If you know where you want to go, you can't go anywhere if you don't have a roadmap, and that's what he did. I think that's the biggest thing for me was just the time, his thinking time. You can just tell when you listen to him speak about how important it is to think these things through. And John, you and I have learned that because, believe it or not, doing a podcast, while we make it sound easy, maybe we do, maybe we don't, I don't know, but we spend a tremendous amount of time discussing these shows long before we ever record them. And sometimes we have some really great stories that we can't share with you about what happens in the background. Anyway, with that, John, do we have a unique build contest coming up?
Oh, we do. We do. And everybody, please send it. Keep sending in the pictures. Keep pinging us on this thing. Larry and I had, we reference our pizza build, the oven that we put on the trailer. So it's kind of, we wanted to see what you guys have been doing out there. We're fascinated by it. We read a lot of things out there, but we thought we'd have a little bit of a contest to get your competitive juices going here. And, Larry, why don't you tell them where they can send in everything?
Well, first off, what's on the table, John? Lots of great Handyman Pros radio show swag, right?
Yeah,
so there's
swag
actually
in the bag,
something in
baby.
it for you, baby. T-shirts, coffee mugs, all kinds of good, cool stuff that we've logoed up and done all kinds of things with. But yes, you can do that. You can send it to us at handymanprosradioshow@gmail.com. You can put it on our Facebook page. That's at Handyman Pros. Or you could send it to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. Any one of those places. Just get it to us so we can see it and go that way. Johnny, I got an email the other day, and you want to know what the return address was? AlphaCentauri.com. It was something about they want their parts back that you took off the spaceship. They sent me
that was
the email. Why are they sending me the email? They say
I gave them. They asked me for an email address. I'm not going to give them mine. Are you kidding me? They're going to spam me.
Well, the good news is I gave them your driver's license number. So
Are these the same guys that told me that they pulled a loan to get a trailer?
Yeah, that's exactly it. All right, folks. We've already given all the contact information. We had to get back to our normal ending, which we make all that stuff up, by the way, on the spot. So if you don't believe it, trust me, it's spur of the moment. Anyway, we appreciate it. We will talk to you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.